everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Violinist UnHae Kwon and today I'm going to teach you how to rosin your bow. And with this video comes a giveaway. I will be giving away 5 of Bernadelle rosins, which is my #1 choice of rosin right now for me and my kids. I will be giving this away for free. For the details, watch to the end of this video, okay? So this is actually my favorite rosin. This has been my favorite rosin since, since my first time at HyFed, so a while. The normal one I used for most of my life was actually the Hills, and at HyFed something happened to the rosin and I need a new one, and it was in a very secluded area in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. Like the closest place would be hours away. So the staff at HyFed's Music Institute, they had like a small stock of like rosins and strings, you know, just in case for emergencies, and they had the Bernadelle. My teacher at the camp was like, Grace, why don't you just go for the Bernadelle? So we tried it and it worked out really well. It's very trustworthy. So it comes in a beautiful pouch. It keeps it safe. It's quite thick, so it really keeps it safe from being banged around in your case. And it's wrapped like this. It's really pretty. Look at that. Gorge. It's so pretty. I love rosin. I've always been a fan of rosin. So what rosin is basically it's a sap. Either wood, specific type of tree, and the liquidy stuff polished and prepared becomes this beautiful thing that makes it possible for us to make beautiful sounds on the violin. This rosin, when it's worked properly, will rosin your bow, which just means it gives it enough friction against the steel strings of your violin to produce sound. So this is what your bow hair looks like when it is fully rosined. It is white. So what I'm actually going to do right now is I'm going to clean off one of my bows like completely so you can see what real horsehair looks like, and then I'm going to jumpstart this rosin for you. So I'm actually not going to tell you what the solution is, only because I don't want kids trying it. If you want to clean the hair of your bow, please go to a professional. Okay, but I do have a solution, and I have my white hair bow, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when the rosin comes off. Do you guys see how brown it is compared to right up here, how white it is? Yes, this is the actual natural hair color of the bow. It just glistens. It's so beautiful. So we're gonna take the rest of it off. Clean it all the way to the top. I really do not want to get this solution on my bow. So for those of you guys who recognize this bow, good for you. This bow was featured in the Can You Tell? Between a modern and an antique bow. I will put it in the description section below if you want to see what it sounds like and if you can tell the difference. Leave me in the comments below which one you liked better. Beautiful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let it dry. Look at this beautiful glistening hair. Do you guys see how beautiful that is? So before and after. So we're gonna let that dry, but as you can tell, it is much darker. All right, let's let it dry. Let it dry. Don't do this at home, kids. Do not do this at home. I want you guys to see how transparent, but you can see how translucent this is. It is so transparent. That's what the horsehair is like. Let's just do one more round of the solution. And people who know what the solution, quote-unquote solution is, please refrain from writing in the comments below what it is, because I really do not want children getting their hands on it and like rubbing it all up and through the wood section of their bow hair. I've seen that happen. So the shops usually only tell the teachers, and the teachers take care of it, or they instruct them to go to the shop and do it, because you can really damage the bow. Takes about 20 minutes to dry, so I'll be back in 20. While that is dry, I'm gonna actually wipe off the rosin from my strings. Okay, so now I am rubbing my violin not my violin, the strings of my violin, with the same solution to just get all the residue off. Just fun fact, my violin doctor in Boston, he uses a very crude instrument, which is steel wool. I do not recommend this, okay? It's the finest steel wood, okay? Like finest. And he just goes, he's like, there, all done. And that of course shears down the longevity of the strings, but you know, it's important to get the excess rosin off, right? So I told one of my professors about this and he goes, no! And he's real old school. Like, this is how like back in the days they used to do it. Some of the solution is actually in old colognes and perfumes. So he used to have a bottle of like 60-year-old cologne and he just sprayed, and then he would just rub down the entire violin, including, including, I'm gonna flip this over just in case of cross. And then you just wipe that down, the fingerboard down. And I do this for my students all the time because they have stinky fingers. Apparently so do I. It's actually just the ebony. It's actually just the ebony. I freak my kids out about it. Sorry kids, now you know. You hear that? That's excess rosin. And I'm doing this with my window open. Sorry neighbors. You know what? It'll be a good time to just go over this for, you know, even my students, or if you're curious. The way rosin works is I'm going to show you after this the bow has been cleared. Rosin is activated by heat, so friction, right? So anytime your bow is moving, it creates friction. So what happens is people think that the rosin, when you wipe it off, it actually stays on top of the string. It doesn't. It melts and wraps around the strings, and as it cools down, it latches onto that metal or other residues that's left over from previous rosin usage. So what happens is when you have a lot of buildup of rosin on your strings, you're gonna get what sounds like sound, and that's honestly rosin. It could also be open steam and stuff like that, but first check and see if you have rosin. Scrape the side and the undercarriage of the string and see if there's rosin there, and usually there really is. You know, especially when I use my steel wool, because I do that. I will show you my steel wool actually. Here we go. I carry this around in my case. It is like the finest one, and I actually used to have one finer than this because that one came from like the dude who gave me like a little piece. Like he gave me something like this and it lasted forever, you know? And the bow is still not dry, so I'm going to show you another rosin. I'm going to show you two other rosins I have in the house. So this is the rosin I was talking about earlier. This is the rosin I grew up with. It's by a company called Hill & Sons, and if it sounds familiar, it's because it's very famous. Hill bows are known for being just bomb.com from back in the days. This is what the Hills look like. Not as pretty as the Brundell. It's because every company uses a different way to melt and distill the rosin to put it into form. The newer Hills seem to do this. So the rumor is a few years ago they changed the formula for the Hills. And it's changed. It wasn't this melty when I used it as a child, but I still bought it out of nostalgia. And this is the Henderson, and I'm glad I have this in the house. I have this because Robert Cower, a friend who I love, who I've been going to since I was probably 6. I got my first violin from him, so my first real violin from him. He lives and dies by Henderson, so I'll show you Henderson. And this is what the rosin looks like. It's very tall, very dark, very thick. So at the end of this video, before the giveaway, I'm going to be talking about some of the myths of the rosin, and we're going to talk about the color of the rosin. Okay, so awesome, it's dry. So I wouldn't suggest people to do that with dirty, oily fingers. Literally, there's no oils on my hands right now. That's the only reason why I did it. Hold on. Okay. So this is what the bow hair looks like. We're gonna start a new rosin. So what activates rosin is heat. Remember that. So people you see in like orchestras that do this, that is literally doing nothing to this hair. Look, nothing's different with the hair. Now look at what happens when I activate it, and look at what happens to the surface. Okay, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful surface. I'm gonna do it first like this. So remember, doing this means nothing, okay? You gotta hear that, and you'll feel the friction between the two surfaces. I want you to look at that. That's the rosin that was activated coming off from here back onto the hair and back on to the surface of the rosin. It's because the hair is gripping some of it but not all of it, because it also is a smooth surface at this point. Now I'm going to keep turning it. Do you hear how the sound is more vigorous, like getting like thicker? And if you're doing it right, you can actually smell the rosin burning off. Let's see if you can see. Ah, do you see the little flakes coming off? Okay, so that is what rosin looks like. And as you can see right here, that's where the rosin is not. We're gonna go a little higher. What you wanna do is you wanna always work from where there is rosin to where there is not. And turn it for a circular in a, you know, like this, a little swivel. When you do the rosin properly, you're gonna see this here. Yeah. If you see that the backside of the hair is actually still brown, that's fine. Once you start playing, what will happen is those rosin will start seeping through and working its way through to the other side. The biggest mistake I see kids make is they do this and then this, or one way, until there's like an indentation. And that's fine. Sometimes I do that for design too, because I like cross. The proper way to rosin is actually to keep spinning so that it stays even. If you look at the top logo, you'll see how I'm moving the rosin. Like that. And I want you to listen to the difference. I am pressing same amount. You hear that sound, and then I want you to listen to the sound of some place that's already rosin, and I'll go towards the middle. Yeah, that sound quality is what you want. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to overwork it, okay? This is not recommended, it's just to show you. And you're going to see all these indentations. Oh, I see it, I see it. So this is how Robert Cower taught me. Oh, I just dropped the rosin. So this is how I demonstrate to my kids. It's actually a trick I learned from Robert Cower here in LA to show my kids what rosin looks like on the bow hair, what's happening. Do you see that collection of rosin right there? And as you rub it, what happens is it works its way through the hair. You shouldn't rosin this much unless it's the very first time. Now the question is, should you rosin this much every single time? No, no, never. We are only doing this, number one, for demonstration, and number two, because the hair was technically newish. Because if you still look up here, it's pretty dark compared to down here. Hair up here is much more translucent. I mean, like, you can basically still see through it, which means it's not as rosin, especially here. Like, you can see the shadow of my fingers entirely compared to here where you can't. You see the difference? Okay, so this is what the rosin looks like after it's been used. Look at that. It's not shiny no more. So sad. The method I use for rosining, you can do it. I recommend all my students to do it, to use the full, you know, basically what you paid for, to use all of it. Sometimes, you know, the cross, I'll show you what the cross looks like here. And we're going to talk about what else I did to this. So this is what it looks like after a lot of use. As you can tell, it is like super worn down where I used it almost to the cloth. Here, I'll show you these. Do you see these other grooves where inside the cross? Instead of like, so this is where the cross is, and then in between you'll see grooves in. So what I did is once I made the cross, I also, you know, wanted to use the sides because it's waste. and I worked them down, but once you get the cross, it's impossible to work it down evenly, period. And what happens is when the ridges when it starts looking like Grand Canyon in this, you know, in a cross, you're gonna start hitting and scraping the side of your violin bow when you put pressure to get that friction from the rosin to the bow hair. And then you're just ruining your, you know, $10,000 bow because you're like scraping the varnish off the side. So I had to retire this because that was what was happening and it was not good. And then of course the other thing you saw was I dropped it, so there was cracks. Don't drop your rosin, kids. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, you don't have to do, you know, my method in rosining, but for sure you need the friction, you need the little movements. I think it's a really great way to use the fullness of your rosin. And actually there was this one story one of my teachers, Churchill, Miss Mary Lou Churchill at New England Conservatory, told me, and she was the principal of the BSO. She was like the first female to ever be the principal of BSO, and she had someone in her section who was like old Russian, and once you get into orchestra, especially back then, they used to give what was called tenure, right, which means you can never get fired. So he just was there until he was like 80 something, and literally his rosin was over 35 years old, and literally she told me that it was like paper, like it was like only left was paper. And I've been wanting to do that forever. The only thing is, like, one time I got super close. I got like literally less than 1 centimeter and then I dropped it. Yeah, I don't know why they don't carpet practice rooms. But yeah, no, just be careful with your rosin. I have that happen all the time. Anyway, thank you super much for watching. And now we're gonna talk about the giveaway. If you made it to this portion of the video, mwah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And now we're gonna talk about the giveaway. Rules of the giveaway. Rule number 1, make sure to follow me on Instagram. Boop. The link is also in the description box below. And subscribe to my YouTube. Number 2, there will be a corresponding post to this video on Instagram. Make sure you heart that and like this video. And the most important part, number 3, leave me a comment below in the Instagram post. The rule's gonna be to tag a friend and to state what your favorite rosin is. Here, tell me what your favorite rosin is. And if you don't like the rosin you use, tell me what you don't like about it and what you're looking for, and maybe I can make a recommendation. Make sure you write down your Instagram handle, okay? Because as soon as I see that, I'm gonna write that on my piece of paper and put it in my draw box for the contest, okay? And if you don't have an Instagram, no problem. I will just write your name that you use for YouTube, and I will do a YouTube video of the actual picking of the draw and 5 winners from US. I'm sorry to people other places. For right now, I'm gonna keep it to US residents, and I'll get in contact with you, get your information, and send you out your little gift. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I have so much stuff I want to share with you guys, so many more music videos I want to share with you guys, that if you want to support me in making these videos, there is a Patreon launching on Music Monday. I'll mention it again in the draw, but if you click the notification button, the bells, da, 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 when you subscribe, you'll get that notification, and hopefully we can make great videos together. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good day. Mwah!